Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the OnePlus 9 Pro and see how this particular phone holds up in 2024. Now, the thing I will definitely tell you about the OnePlus 9 Pro, this was a pretty good phone when it first came out. I still think it was a pretty decent phone up until like maybe last year. But I will tell you, because of the amount of improvements we've gotten in the more recent phones, it might make a lot more sense to go and buy something that might be maybe a little bit better than this thing. And I'll explain that throughout this whole entire video. But first things first, if you want to pick up some phones that I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the OnePlus 9 Pro, the thing you have to remember is that this phone came out back in 2021 and it was a very good looking phone. This thing had very little bezel around it. It pretty much was stemming off the OnePlus 8 and 8 Pro, and those phones looked very beautiful for sure. On the top left of this particular phone, you can see you're getting the hole punch display. So there's, the front facing camera. You're getting a 6.7-inch LTPO fluid AMOLED display. It's a very, very good looking panel. And even up until this day, I mean, it still looks very nice. 120 hertz, 1440p, 1300 nits of brightness. It's definitely not the brightest panel of all time, but I will tell you, for like a pretty basic panel, it's really not too bad, and I definitely do think it gets the job done for the most part. If I'm going through and if I'm buying any sort of device, I definitely like a phone looking like this. On top of that, you are basically maintaining the curved panel, the curved sides. So that's another really cool thing going on for this particular phone too. Because if you're getting the curved sides here, it's still going to feel like a pretty, premium, kind of up-to-date phone. But the thing you're going to have to keep in mind here too is that this particular device, for the most part, it's not going to be like the most up-to-date phone when it comes down to the brightness. But I will tell you, for everything else, it's still a good-looking phone nonetheless. On the bottom, USB Type-C port, and no expandable storage on this phone whatsoever. On the back side, you are getting this frosted glass bag, which I think is actually very, very nice to have inside of this phone. As I mentioned, for many years now, having any sort of frosted glass bag is very nice, and I was very happy when it, kind of debuted and came on the OnePlus 8 Pro, first time on the OnePlus series. But now getting it on this type of phone is also another super nice thing that you're going to be getting on this particular device too. So there's some really, really nice stuff going on for this particular phone, and I will tell you from that side, definitely gets a thumbs up for me. You are getting wireless charging on this particular phone. You're also getting IP certification on this phone as well, which is another really nice thing. It was like the first time we got it on like a OnePlus phone for the most part. But we are missing out on some things on this phone that newer phones basically have. So for one, the brighter panels, we're kind of missing out on like that massive like 2000 plus nits of brightness display that we're getting on other phones nowadays. On top of that, you're missing out on reverse wireless charging. So reverse wireless charging is a really nice feature that a lot of phones have nowadays. This phone is not going to be giving you that type of capability either. So that's just another kind of minor thing to keep in mind. Again, not the biggest deal in the world, but just one of those things to keep in mind if you're going through and purchasing this particular device. Now, moving on to basically the price tag of this phone. This phone on Amazon right now is being sold for, I think, like not even like $500, which I think is way overpriced. This phone is very, very expensive for what you're paying for if you're paying that particular price tag for it. You are much better off purchasing a phone that is still, a little bit better from that price tag standpoint. And this phone doesn't make a lot of sense to go and buy from that particular standpoint in and of itself. So I would hate for you to go and buy this phone when there's way better phones out there that are going to be giving you significantly better performance, better display, better everything for that price tag. If you're spending like $200 or dollars or less than $200 on this phone, then maybe like it might make sense. But for the average person, it makes zero sense to go and buy a phone like this at all. So again, just one of those minor things to keep in mind here. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there as well. Now from the camera side of things, this particular phone is going to be giving you that it's kind of like a quadruple camera setup. So you're getting a 48 megapixel wide angle lens, 8 megapixel telephoto lens, a 50 megapixel ultra wide camera, and then a 2 megapixel monochrome lens. Now, the thing I will tell you about this particular camera when it comes down to it is that overall, it's a very decent camera for what they made at that time. It's just not like an insanely great camera that you may have expected when OnePlus was like hyping up this camera like it was nobody's business. So it was this particular year when they teamed up with Hasselblad. And for those of you who don't know, Hasselblad is that one company that makes cameras. And it was a good idea. I think it was a really good idea when they first made it. But the problem with this is that they overhyped it, in my personal opinion, way too much, that it just kind of became one of these phones that just really wasn't worth buying because the camera just was so much weirder compared to the competition. Like, you were much better off purchasing a device that was giving you a better display, better everything, and a better camera than this particular phone. The other problem that I have with this particular device for the most part is that, you're getting 8K on the back, which is very nice. I love having 8K and is a really, really nice feature. But you're getting 1080p on the front. So in this particular day and age, it is like you would expect to be getting a way better phone from that particular standpoint than this thing when it comes down to that side of things. So when I was going through and buying this particular phone, that was kind of the problem I had. Like I didn't want to go ahead and buy a phone and have it already giving me like a weird type of experience when it came down to the battery life, when it came down to the camera quality, and that kind of in a way was exactly what was going on with this particular phone. So once again, kind of keep that in mind, but when it comes down to that side, that kind of covers it up here for the most part. So from the camera side, that kind of covers it up there. Now from the performance, now from the software longevity side, this is also another interesting thing to kind of keep in mind here too. So both these phones are basically kind of, I mean, this phone is somewhat done getting software updates. It did go all the way up to Android 14, which is actually pretty impressive. But beyond that, it's not getting any more software updates. So if you're trying to go through and buy a phone that's still going to be supported with software, unfortunately, this is not going to be a phone for you. So if you are planning on getting some sort of a device, you probably want it to be giving you, a little bit of a better performance in terms of the software. And the problem I would say with this phone for the most part is that it's not really going to be supported with software, that much longer. It's still supported as of now, but if you're going to be wanting the longer lasting phone here, then clearly something like the OnePlus 9 Pro may not be the best choice for you. And you might want to go up to something like maybe like a OnePlus, 11 or OnePlus 12. Or better yet, what I highly recommend doing is going through and buying something like a Samsung Galaxy, one of the newer ones, or a newer Google Pixel. Those ones are going to be giving you a significantly better experience than this particular one. So take it as you will, but that's kind of how I see the software holding up from this particular side. When it comes down to the whole entire performance side of things though, this was always like a pretty interesting thing going on for this particular device because it honestly wasn't that bad of a performing phone. So with this thing internally, it has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 chipset inside with 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM. Now, the thing I will tell you about the performance side of this particular phone is that if you're going through and buying any sort of device, you have to keep in mind that there can always be little tiny issues going on with this particular phone. But I will say with this particular device, the performance actually isn't that terrible. And that is something that's really, really nice and impressive going on for this particular phone. So as I'm going through and as I'm, picking up any sort of phones or anything like that, I like the fact that this thing was giving you a pretty decent performing chipset and the performance all across the board was fairly solid for phones in that year. Now, it wasn't perfect and there were definitely problems maybe that you could experience, but I would say for the most part, it really wasn't that bad of a performing phone. And I do think that in and of itself was a very nice thing going on for this particular phone. But when compared to maybe some other devices that you may have had, phones like the, Google Pixel 6 that came out that year, the iPhone that came out that year, and some other phones, it may not have been the best performing phone, especially when it comes down to its Oxygen OS type of software that I was giving you. Beyond that though, this is still a very good performing phone for the most part. And to kind of sum up this video, what I'll definitely tell you, I definitely do like a phone like the OnePlus 9 Pro. I think it's a good phone, and especially when it first came out, it was still a good phone when it first came out too. But I will tell you for the most part, there are definitely significantly better phones that I recommend buying that have came out since then. Phones like the Google Pixel 9, not like the Google Pixel 9, but the Google Pixel 8, the, other phones like the iPhones that have came out even since then, the Samsung Galaxy S23, the S23 FE. I think these are significantly better phones than this particular device when it comes down to it. So take it as you will, but that's kind of how I see this particular phone holding up in 2024. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.